So I'm pleased to be joined with Canadian musician Matt LeFait, and you are from the East Coast of Canada, and you recently got to go out on tour with another Canadian artist, Dan Bremnes. We're going to get to hear all about that and hear how that even happened, that experience, what that was like for you in just a few minutes. But maybe if somebody isn't familiar with your music journey, can you kind of share like a quick synopsis of how you got to where you are today?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I've been on this musical journey for about 15 years now, actually. I was in a Christian rock band for 10 years before going solo. I felt the Lord calling me into, deeper writing and kind of a different path. So I started producing my own music, and then I started releasing under my personal name, Matt LeFay, in 2019, around that. And I've released a lot of music since then. I've collabed with a few artists as well, Chelsea Amber, 180, people like that. So I like to include other artists, kind of get to experience this whole journey together. So I mean, in a nutshell, that's what I've been doing.
Absolutely. And so, yeah, a big part of music is obviously getting to go out, play shows live, get to meet the people that listen to your music. So, yeah, you got to do that recently with Dan Bremnes. So, first off, like just us going out on tour, like what was that like? Have you done much touring before?
Uh, I do a lot of one-offs. So going out multiple nights in a row like that, not a whole lot as of yet. I'm pushing more for that this year, actually. But in my old band, we used to do things like that, but I haven't done it in a while. And it was funny. It wasn't funny, but it was funny. I was just getting over our family, the non-funny part. We all had pneumonia this year, okay? So that was like August, September, and then we went on tour with Dan over the course of some dates in October. And I was literally just getting my voice back. So it was kind of scary, having multiple nights in a row. Sometimes if singers are listening, or I'm not sure if you're a singer or not, maybe you are. Um, if you know, like, you have just enough juice in the tank to like destroy your voice just to get through one night, but if you know you have consecutive nights in a row, you really need to be careful. So it was a lot of prayer and water to get through the tour. But
Yeah, what would that have been like? Because obviously you want to do your best, but then like you said, you don't want to push it too far where it's like, okay, then you can't do it tomorrow night or whatever.
yeah. So this tour was an acoustic tour, so you're even more vulnerable than having a full band behind you. There was a couple times, I'm not gonna lie, that my voice gave out and it sounded like I was hitting puberty again. It was fantastic. Especially, I have a new song called, well, it came out in September, called Life Giver. And there's like a high note that I hit in it. And if anyone knows me, I like to hit every single note I do in the recording live as well. That's just how I am. Maybe I'm just stuck up snob or something. I don't know. But that's just how I am. Uh, I hit that note and it sounded like a dying goat. It was terrible. But it's funny. The first of the tour, it was like it was bad. But by the end of the tour, I had like generally brought my voice back. So I don't know what happened. It was a miracle, I suppose, but that was
And I
fun.
guess yeah, and I guess if your voice is giving out, that's when you can just kind of hold the microphone, give it to the audience, and be like, "Hey, you guys sing this time, right?" And you
That's
just
that's
have to
when
give
you
yourself a
really
little break.
that's when you really pray that they know your songs.
Absolutely.
If you hear
So,
a squealing in the background, it's actually my dog crying. I'm sorry for that if you hear noise in the background.
oh dear. So yeah, so you kind of mentioned it. So you went out in October for just a kind of couple of days. What was kind of the like route that you took where you got to go out with Dan?
So we hit up the Maritimes here. We had a date in New Brunswick here, where I live in Fredericton. It was about an hour and a half away. We had one in Halifax and one in Charlottetown, PEI.
And then just kind of going out with Dan Bremnes as an artist, and you kind of mentioning it earlier, like getting to work with other artists kind of brings a different flair to it. So kind of what was that like being out on the road with him? Maybe you learned something more, maybe he learned something from you.
It's cool to see other artists' process of how they, even before a show starts, what they do, right?
Mhm.
Like, I've done hundreds of shows by this point, and we're all kind of just humans. You know what I mean? Like, there's no one that doesn't kind of do the same thing, relax before. Maybe you'll sit there and actually Dan drinks tea, which is kind of funny. He was drinking tea before it, so I joined him drinking tea. Um, and then he brought a tea out on stage, which I thought was pretty bold and cool. I might try that at one of my shows coming up. But he just walked out on stage just like he was like owning the place. It was pretty cool. But no, it's great to see other artists in just owning their craft. And Dan is one of those artists. His shows are top notch, which pushes me to do better, right? As an artist. If you've ever been to one of his shows, he has a kick drum that he uses, even at his acoustic shows. And he's like, he really engages the audience. So I love that about traveling with other artists and just joining tours and stuff, because it gives you ideas, not to steal, but to just make your own. Because I told him, I said, Dan, I might steal that idea. And he was fine with it. But anyway.
And how did that opportunity just even kind of come up in the first place? Was it just like you guys knew each other through the music world, or like what did that look like?
Actually, it came up through the Christian radio stations in this area. There's Inspire FM and Joy FM in Fredericton. And I've done a lot of I've worked a lot with Joy FM actually over the last 10 years. They've brought me in, if there's other artists coming through the area, like Elias Dummer or Jordan St. Cyr, guys like that, I'll join the concerts. So they've always been a great support that way, even in my old band. And then Inspire FM, I just got to know Terry this year from Inspire FM. And he's really put his arm around me to help me along, which I am so grateful for. So he was excited to have me on this tour. And actually, we have some unannounced stuff coming up, hopefully together this year too.
Oh, so you gotta stay tuned for that probably, right? And get
Yes.
your first
Yes.
thing. Yeah. So as you're kind of looking back at your experience going out on the road, what was like a highlight for you? Maybe it was drinking tea before a show, maybe it was something else. What would that be for you?
Well, honestly, and it might sound like the cliche Christian answer, but playing the same songs after night and seeing a different crowd and how they engage and how they worship as like the collective body of Christ really inspired me. Honestly, it did.
And what's that like? Because you're a worship leader too, so you're used to being up on stage and leading people in worship. So a mixture
Yeah.
of doing that with your own songs, kind of seeing different crowds, like you said. Like what is that like? Is it humbling? Yeah, just what was that experience for you like?
It there's a mixture of wow, this is actually happening. Then there's a mixture of you have to stay humble in all of this. If you don't, you'll get a big head and you'll fall off stage. But um, yeah, it is humbling in the sense that you hear some people singing your songs back to you. And not that I've even achieved that great of success at this point, but that's cool. And like you mentioned, I'm a worship leader as well. So I like to throw in popular worship songs in between my own songs as well, and that really engages the crowd. And just seeing the authentic worship that comes from different denominations and backgrounds and just people of all styles, it's just a beautiful thing. Honestly, the people of God are amazing.
And is there maybe one, yeah, maybe more popular worship song that it's kind of like any night that you're leading that you're like, okay, this is kind of a go-to for me?
There's two. It's kind of like the worship leader's cheater code. Okay, so there's Gratitude by Brandon Lake, and there's Goodness of God by Bethel. Those are my two go-to that you're going to get some feedback, some people singing along really loud. Those are my two for sure.
Okay. And now as you're kind of looking ahead to this year, we're start of the new year. So what does 2025 have in store for you, for your music, for any other projects that you have going on that you can
This
tell
is
us about, obviously?
Yeah, for sure. I tend to run about 2 to 3 months ahead, so I only see a couple months ahead, except for some things that might be coming up, like some tours and stuff down the road. Um, I constantly this year I'll be having new music come out every 6 to 8 weeks is what I'm pushing for. I have a new song actually that just dropped today. It wasn't an official big release. It was actually it was a surprise song I wrote for my dad's 75th birthday,
Oh.
and I presented it to him. So anyway, that released today, And I have another song coming up called The God Who Sees Me that I wrote in a really tough spot that happened earlier last year. So it's a very real, raw song, and I'm excited to release that. That should be around March. And I'm always releasing YouTube videos and lots of content. Musicians
Then,
are content creators nowadays too.
so where would be the best place for people to follow along to stay up to date with these frequent updates?
Uh, YouTube or Instagram is kind of where I live, and Spotify is where I really pushed my music.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, kind of sharing about your experience, and we're excited to hear about your new music coming up too.
Awesome. I'm excited. Oh, and I've been producing a lot too. I should probably mention that.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was gonna say I know you did Barbara Joy and Chelsea Amber's "Oh Holy Night." So we spoke to Barbara Joy around Christmas time. So
Yes,
we're a little out
perfect.
of
Yeah.
Christmas music now, but yeah, maybe what's that road like for you? Kind of taking music still, but taking it down a different avenue.
I've always kind of had the passion to work with other artists anyway. Uh, I kind of try to fill the void of like answering questions that I had going along the path that I had to really search for the answers. So I kind of try to fill that void, and producing seems to be the natural occurrence of that.
All right. Well, just got even more on your plate. So yeah, we're excited to kind of hear about anything that you have coming up in the future.
Awesome.